Forever at the forefront of technology, gaming is one of the most progressive and advanced mediums of them all when it comes to new hardware and software combos. Where the likes of film have experimented with 3D gimmicks and D-box immersion, gaming pushes the boundaries of rendered worlds, character animation, and the purest of interactive mechanics, all in search of perfecting escapism. Like every creative art form, some studios do it better than others, creating quite the reputation for specific top-tier devs as they release games that are head and shoulders above the competition in terms of pure technical power. Think of Naughty Dog's catalog or Rockstar, for example. Games that aren't just lookers or known for their graphics alone, but a combination of gameplay mechanics and zero bugs or glitches, resulting in genuinely jaw-dropping feats of coding from top to bottom. If you had to put together a showcase of the greatest video games that excel in every possible area, including up-to-date tech, what would be up there? And which one game is hands down the most impressive when you factor in the amount of work required, satisfying gameplay, a level of overall polish, and graphics that would blow anyone away? I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 11 masterpiece video games that are total technical powerhouses. Number 11, Hitman II. IO Interactive knocked it out of the effing park with their latest 2 Hitman games, and thanks to the sequel retrofitting all the original game's levels with new game mechanics, you can treat the whole thing as one awesome platform of contractual slaughter just waiting for you to dive in. It's the levels themselves, though, that really drop jaws. Each one is a miniature world of intricately coded AI routines and scripted sequences, allowing you to pull out any manner of threads just to see what will happen. The gorgeous sun-kissed village/beach combo of Sapienza hides an underground chemical lab, just as the mountainous Bond villain-like treatment facility in Hokkaido has a whole series of sci-fi surgical equipment that you can tinker with, providing you know where to look. The fun of Hitman has always been answering the notion of, I wonder what happens if I do this, and these new games give you a few thousand unique possibilities at every turn. IO Interactive really deserve to be up there with the finest open world builders in the industry, because once you see Hitman in motion, there's nothing else like it. Number 10, Grand Theft Auto 5. Rockstar's latest GTA is the most in-depth and hyper-detailed cityscape the team has ever assembled. And that really is saying something, as open-world gaming wouldn't even be what it is today without their work across the 2000s. Using the company's patented Rage Tech, which stands for Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, first pioneered back in GTA 4, Rockstar have perfected how AI should react to pretty much everything, implementing a number of animations that blend ragdoll physics with scripted animations, ensuring carnage and experimentation is always different no matter what you try to do. From the submarine wreckage-filled depths of the surrounding ocean to wandering atop a blimp in the middle of Los Santos before skydiving out and plummeting towards the ground at 100 miles an hour, the sheer breadth of GTA 5's play space is almost completely unrivaled. Number 9, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. If you get a minute, check out the history of the Witcher games. CD Projekt Red went from a fairly primitive over-shoulder action RPG to a larger, still mostly linear sequel, only to branch out into one of the most impressive video games of all time, all within 8 years. Wild Hunt is by far the studio's most impressive work to date, a fitting tribute to original author Andrzej Sapkowski's work, whilst also flexing its own sizable muscles, rolling together a solid character progression with a constantly surprising mythology, endless in-depth side quests, and a main story that's one of the most rewarding this decade. Even the DLC Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine are both immaculately well-produced additions to the base game, the latter in particular being more sizable than many full-priced games to this day. Number 8, Ratchet Clank. Let's switch gears from open world games, as it is possible to execute on a smaller scope with just as much proficiency, if not more. Sadly, this newest installment did come alongside a really naff movie tie-in, but that shouldn't detract from just how insanely enjoyable every part of the game was. You can tell Insomniac didn't just want to reskin their 2002 original, instead going back and completely reworking the core engine, developing new chunks of various levels, a load of new weapons, and refining every character model until it literally looked identical to what you'd see on the big screen. It can't be understated just how gorgeous Ratchet & Clank looks in motion. A solid frame rate, dynamic lighting effects that really come to life whenever you deploy the disco ball creating Groovatron. There's even a gun that turns enemies into pixelated sprites, which you can then smash apart with real-time physics like scattered Lego bricks. One of the most underrated PS4 exclusives of them all, Ratchet & Clank is an exemplary well-made game, and one that helped revitalize the 3D platformer long before Crash and Spyro came back on the scene. Number 7, Doom. Playing 2016's Doom is like controlling the crescendo of a heavy metal performance. The band are going hell for leather, you can feel the adrenaline exuding from every pore, and the music itself is a grinding, metallic, beautiful cacophony of emotional fury. Doom is all of that wrapped into a first-person shooter campaign that easily sits up there with the likes of Halo, Modern Warfare, or BioShock. However, it's the fact that id Software took the time to ensure that this reboot would run at a solid 60 frames per second, which when you marry that to an assortment of weapons that includes missile launchers, plasma rifles, and whopping great room-leveling lasers, you end up playing it as fast as your mind can process information. On top of all this, you've got a level of polish that only comes from a veteran developer of the industry, comprising a team of individuals who knew exactly how much weight and legacy the Doom name had to carry before executing on that ethos in a way none of us saw coming. Number 6. Star Wars Battlefront 2, or just any DICE game this gen. Nobody does graphical knockouts quite like DICE, and whilst you can point to any of their games this generation as an example of that, Battlefront 2 is on another scale of pure impressiveness. Yes, it had a disastrous launch with the implementation of a pay-to-win microtransaction store that royally peed everyone off, including me, but with that removed and some time passed, we can appreciate the craft of the game in a whole new light. Because make no mistake, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is absolutely stunning. EA's substantial budgetary coffers went into every last pixel of this thing, and everything from particle effects to gorgeous lighting, film-accurate sounds to facial animation is spot on. In addition, DICE have been one of the first major studios to adapt the technique of photogrammetry, where hundreds of high-quality images are taken of a given thing before then being applied to an in-game mesh. The devs were given access to all sorts of official Star Wars props to get the best shots, and it results in an almost photoreal quality to every single thing. Battlefront 2 should be the top of your games that deserve a second chance, providing you can see the forest of dice for the trees of EA. Number 5. Rise and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Both the second and final part of the new Tomb Raider trilogy might not have made anywhere near as much impact as their older titles, but graphically, they're in a league of their own. I genuinely can't pick a favorite between the two in terms of sheer rendering power and environmental fidelity, so let's just celebrate both, or either if you want to shout out a favorite. You can tell both Crystal Dynamics and Eidos wanted these sequels to be exemplary showcases of what they can accomplish when continuing a landmark franchise. As such, there's nary a bad texture, bug, or glitch in sight. Each character model looks stunning, and everything from lip syncing to crumbling temples or the light that refracts off a cave's walls all looks almost photoreal. Shadow of the Tomb Raider did get a bit too bogged down in action game mechanics that felt too generic and rode across its entire runtime, but when it comes to visuals, both developers really excelled. Number 4. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Hideo Kojima's final entry in the Metal Gear saga might have seen its story crippled thanks to studio interference from Konami, but when it came to the world, gameplay, mechanics, and breadth of ways to play, Kojima Productions knocked it clear out of the park. The seemingly never-ending list of ways to accomplish your missions results in a million different stories to tell for each player, all coming from one of the most solid game engines gaming has ever seen. There's stealthy infiltration, offing enemies one by one, tying balloons to extract them, commanding a companion to cover you with sniper fire, sicking your dog on another, or riding a miniature Metal Gear mech from enemy to enemy, all of which you can do across just a couple of missions. I could go on. There's using camouflage that turns you completely invisible, or shooting electric cables to shock those standing in a puddle below. There's even playing a tape of fart noises while hiding in a toilet to avoid being disturbed. All of this makes Metal Gear 5 absolutely ludicrous, but in the best way possible, and it's all because of that immaculate game engine bringing everything to life. Number 3. God of War. A sentence that maybe sounds doable but was actually a complete technical nightmare, making a game in one take. All of God of War, yes, minus the fact it whites out when you go to the realm between realms, but whatever, the camera motion stays the same, is done in one continuous shot. As if this wasn't enough, and apparently it was such a nightmare to get right, that creative director Cory Barlog had the feature turned away from previous games in the series. 2018's God of War looks outstanding. Combat moves like liquid butter, the array of special moves and finishes resulting in a pyrotechnic display of color and particle effects that only looks better in the photo mode. Here you can zoom in to read all the etchings on temple walls, see the pores in Kratos' skin, or realize that Sony Santa Monica actually rendered specific materials to differentiate between leather, rope, and everything else. It's because of all these elements forming one hell of a core foundation that you might not immediately notice, but scratch away at the surface and this is a phenomenal body of work from all involved. Number 2. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Even the first Uncharted saw Naughty Dog plant their flag as the name in facial animation and digitizing an actor's performance, but almost a decade later, they continue to be in a league of their own. Just watch Nathan Drake's eyebrows twitch, the sadness of Elena's face, the age in Sully's, or any of their eyes widen when they're excited. As a single example of just how far we've come visually in regards to the pixelated delights of the MSX or the NES, Naughty Dog have consistently been one of the most meticulous developers the industry has ever seen, with a catalogue of great games to back it up. The Last of Us set the ball rolling in regards to conveying a wider range of emotions through the immaculate marriage of facial scanning and coding, but it's a mentality that stretches across every square inch of A Thief's End, resulting in one of the best-looking, most technically impressive and mechanically tight video games of the generation. Number 1. Red Dead Redemption 2. There is a level of care and attention to Rockstar's latest Cowboy sim that even though we knew to expect something special, still blew everyone away. Honestly, it's kinda like stepping into another time period. It's a level of detail that we can see in something like one level of Hitman, spread across a gargantuan open world comprising swamplands, cities, small townships, and everything in between. Rockstar's Rage engine once again proved why they're the best in the business, modeling everything from the physics of individual bullets to the weight of bodies interacting with the environment to weather effects and full wildlife cycles that shift across the day and the night. I could go on and on. Even the individual follicles of Arthur Morgan's beard would have taken a coder considerable time to get right, and that's before you take into account the pointless likes of sun shining through ear cartilage or how a boat will sink over time depending on how much it's been shot. Red Dead Redemption 2 wins this easily, and I can't even begin to imagine how much time this all took to get right. Answers down in the comments below as to just what the hell GTA 6 is going to look and feel like. As for now though, those have been my picks for the most over-the-top and technically impressive video games that you can play right now. Let me know your favorites down in the comments below, and if there are any candidates that I missed out. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.